Hello, all, and welcome. Thank you for fitting this call into your schedule. We hope you enjoy the information that we're going to be presenting today as we kick off our final call of 2025 for our retail program managers. So I hope you all have a lot of fun plans coming up. And with this, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Steve Mandernack, our Executive Director at AFTO, to give us a few updates on training.
Sure. Well, first, thank you very much, Deanna. It's great to see everyone. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide. Oh, hold it. Or can I? I might be able to. I'll figure that out. Just a reminder, Inspector Boot Camp is just around the corner. I think you all know that's become a pretty popular program across our program areas. If your staff aren't participating, both basic and advanced are available. Retail specific portion also. Autumn just sent me a little information and told me that a special session one day on rehydrated foods is going to be something that I think many retail programs are now seeing more of. Might be something that's something that's new in this year's list, but it's always an exciting event. And I know when I looked this morning, most of the sessions had over 400 people registered so far. Once again, free, new for this year. California will have California CEUs attached to it, which is kind of important for some folks in that region, but definitely excited with what's going on with boot camp. Once again, free, available, good opportunity for inexpensive CEU hours for your staff. Moving on to the next slide. Program manager training. Just don't remember the new program manager training course is beginning in January. We could still potentially get a couple people into that course. It includes 3 4-hour virtual sessions along with a session, one day in session person at the annual conference. So definitely take a look at that, and the topics that are included are there. If you are interested, hit that QR code. There's still time to get you into for that first session. So just wanted to remind you all of that. This is really meant for program leaders, maybe not necessarily managers, but future managers, up and comers. As you can see, the topics are all topics that I suspect many of you confront every single day. So let's move on to the next slide. Want to remind you, Food Safety Culture with Frank Yanis is coming up March 10th through 11th in San Antonio, Texas. There is a significant discount. When I say significant, hundreds of dollar discount if you do your $50 AFTO membership. And all of the folks that have been to this in the past come and tell me that it was really something that changed how they think about how their program operates and helped them really think how to have a very focus program that's really focused on the right things. So just something to think about if you haven't had an opportunity to participate in this session. It's a pretty amazing session. And Frank is probably one of the best people I've ever seen teach. So definitely think about it if you're interested. Yeah, Chris, thank you for the shout out. I know some folks in this room have been there, but it is something else. Jeff also, yep, it really is worthwhile. So if you haven't done it, definitely think about it. It is worthwhile. And San Antonio in March is not a bad time to be there. It'll be a little warmer than parts of the country, at least. So moving on to the next item. Just to note that we have FDA 215 and 218 courses for FDA coming up later this in February, March, April, May. The course dates are here. There's also a Train the Trainer of both courses coming up in April. So definitely take a look at those and see if those might be of interest to your staff and get signed up. We hate to see an empty seat in those courses, as we know they are pretty valuable courses and definitely huge for everyone to take as you work toward implementing risk-based inspection programs. Okay, let's move on. Wanted to point out, I know many of our retail programs recognize that traceability is actually the first time that FDA has done a law that actually impacts the retail programs. When I say that, this is actually part of the federal regulation that was adopted for traceability and includes restaurants and grocery stores and virtually all of them. Anyone with above $200,000 of income per year is included under this rule. We also recognize there hasn't been a lot of discussion in this. So JB, I'll answer that question. You have to take the prerequisites in order to get in. OTED will not allow individuals to take the courses without the prerequisites. So answer that question. But back to the traceability course. North Carolina State, in conjunction with Ohio State, have developed this course that really is meant for retail level operators. Has both an online on demand version with a live session that follows to help answer questions, etc. So about 3 hours and 45 minutes. It is free currently. So if any of your staff or yourself would be interested in taking this for awareness, on the next slide, we actually have some upcoming dates. Oh, one more. Here gives you a list of who might benefit on February 2nd and February 16th. There are 2 online courses coming. If you have questions, there are additional courses coming. Ellen Shoemaker at North Carolina State and Ben Chapman Shop is the one leading this project. But I just took a look at the outline from it about a week ago. It looks like it would be very valuable and a great way to learn. It's still in the pilot phase; they're still learning, but it is a very good course and an opportunity to at least begin getting that awareness. I think it's going to be a while before we see additional awareness opportunities available for folks at the retail level. So, just a heads up, definitely something to look at for you, your staff, and your leaders in your program. Okay, next item. Other training, lots of trainings coming up. Of course, instructor skills, basic inspections and investigations, root cause analysis. There is a February course that's entirely virtual, focused entirely on retail. So definitely a great course to think a little bit about going forward, along with some other areas. But for our full course schedule, just follow the link, the QR code below or the link, and you can see what's happening. One other thing I would note is we're beginning to send set the course dates, locations, etc. for 26, 27. If you have any courses you'd be interested in having in your region and you might be interested in helping to host that, there are discounts and free registrations available, but we need to know that very soon. So email myself or Brenda Morris on our staff, and we can help figure out if there might be some opportunities to do some joint activities if there's something you're specifically interested in. So moving on to the next one. This goes over to Sally now.
Thank you, Steve. And so in the last 50 state retail call, Steve covered some updates about our AFTO Retail Hazard Plan Review Service and basically said that we had just completed our first one ever. And so I want to give you some more details about how that process went. And so I'll give you a couple of play-by-play items. It started in late March of this year. A firm came to us with a sushi rice HACCP plan. And so we completed in March that first initial review, just a quick preliminary review. Basically, is it a complete HACCP plan? Does it have all the prereqs and requirements outlined and covered there? Is it current to FDA Model Food Code? And of course, making sure it is for retail and not a manufactured HACCP plan or a variance request. So then we held an opening call with this firm. This opening call is where we bring together all the jurisdictions, the firm, and AFTO personnel. This occurred in May. And so we just talked through what the process steps looked like. Made sure that everyone knew what to expect, a play-by-play there. And then ask any of the jurisdictions on that call if they wanted to have any individuals serve as panelists to take a deeper look at the plan. Since it was sushi rice, fairly straightforward, what we did there is just we skipped that scientific review step, felt that wasn't necessary. There was no product assessment necessary there either, and just went straight to regulatory review. And so that regulatory review panel met in May, also in June and July. And at that point, we're looking at things like, what does FDA Model Food Code require specifically for sushi rice? That is pH being less than 4.2. Did our best to meet all sushi rice requirements that were in the individual jurisdictions food codes and so forth. And then I would take that information, that feedback back to the client and work with them to make any edits or additions to their plan. And then once we were done, this was early September, we held a closing call. At that closing call, we were able to issue them a final review letter. And so this was about a 3.5 month process from where we opened and then closed the review. At that point, we had a complete plan. That final review letter was about 5 pages long. It included things like a summary of the steps that we had performed, any decisions that were made during the review, and then gave the firm ideas of what to do next. That is, how to seek approval from all the individual jurisdictions where they wanted to use their sushi rice HACCP plan. So it was 9 jurisdictions in all. We also gave a list of all the jurisdictions and also the addresses of the firms where they wanted to use that plan to make it easy to basically share a copy of the letter with jurisdictions as part of that approval process. And then we also included some tips, so both for the firm and for inspectors, just some things to look for when they're doing inspections. The firm should be keeping records about pH calibration and pH measurements of finished sushi rice, daily monitoring, make sure you keep up with verification. And that ends up being the same things that inspectors are going to be looking for when they're doing those HACCP visits. We also had an addendum to this letter. It had some extra recommendations and how they could do additional pH verification if that became necessary for some of the programs they're working with. During that process, we also looked at CFP sushi rice retail guidance and included some items from there as well. So I followed up after we closed this review in September and found out that within a month after giving them that final review letter, they actually had one jurisdiction accept that plan without any edits or issues. And a second jurisdiction was pretty close to accepting the plan, approving that plan without any follow-ups or changes needed there. So we see that as a success, especially given the time and effort that the jurisdictions would need to spend on that if an individual has a plan review. So some time savings there and hopefully some resource savings as well. And what I want to do as I close up here is give you some feedback. The firm itself told us, and I'll just read this verbatim, I want to thank all the various regulators who were on the phone, who went through this process with us. It's been a great learning experience for myself and my team. I'm just encouraged that this is available because the idea of doing 600 different HACCP plans for 600 different regulators is overwhelming. And you've made me not hate sushi rice quite so much. It is a huge success, and it's not that I don't like the taste of sushi, it's just the idea of having to deal with this 600 different times is really overwhelming. And the last thing I'll do here is I've got a couple of comments from the panelists themselves. So some of those discussions that we had during the review, I heard things like, maybe we should take a look at our internal HACCP review. I see how other states, how other local jurisdictions are handling this. And maybe we need to look at how we evaluate pH meter calibration. Are we being too rigid? Are we not being rigid enough? And in a way, sort of getting some calibration across some consistency across jurisdictions. Looking at floor plan details, do we have to have the entire floor plan, or is just that one snippet where they're actually doing sushi rice enough to cover all bases? Okay. So that's what I've got for now. We do have 4 additional clients in the hopper as far as wanting to get sushi rice or sushi and other types of specialized processes plans looked at, and looking forward to some really great things in the future. So that is my update for now. And if we have any questions, I'll take those.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the next slide. Just wanted to note that this, as you recall, FDA did their employee health policy toolkit. Since that has happened, the National Restaurant Association has made available an app that can go through when to call in sick and the employee health policy that's available on their website, and it's pre-firewall, so everyone can get a hold of it. You don't have to actually use ServSafe or any be an NRA member to get access. So there is a QR code for that you might be of interest. I did take a look at it, and it looks excellent. But it was something that I was unaware of that thought many of you might be interested in. So let's move on to the next slide. Just a reminder. Oh, hold it. This one is gone. Sorry. Moving on. Thought that was just a reminder, the 130th annual AFTO conference will be in Columbus, Ohio, June 5th through the 9th. The agenda is coming together nicely. We're very excited by where that's getting to. I can tell you there is going to be a special day-long workshop on AI and data quality and food safety. So really getting into the weeds of how you might use AI in your food safety programs, both for industry and regulators. That's coming together very nicely. Pretty excited by where that's coming. But the overall agenda is coming together nicely. Registration will be released in mid-January along with the agenda. So be watching. One thing I do want to note for you all, if your program has been relying on travel scholarships, in other words, small conference grant scholarships for part of the travel to attend, the small conference grants were not funded for any program with the exception of CFP for this cycle. So we do not have any of those funds available. So travel assistance will be extremely limited. Then the next thing I will tell you is we will again be having a retail program managers and a joint program managers meeting available. Retail program managers will be on Saturday morning along with the joint session. If you happen to have a manufactured food program, that is going to be split and not at the same time as retail, as we had a lot of requests from those people that had both programs, and that will be on Tuesday morning. So the conference pattern is one day ahead this year. In other words, the general session will begin on Saturday night and will end on Tuesday with workshops on Friday. So it's a little bit different than the pattern we're used to, one day ahead of our normal pattern. So once again, mark your calendars. You will be receiving the invitation to the program managers meeting very early in next year, like the first week of January. So that's coming forth. Next. I just want to personally thank all of you that have taken the time to do the resource survey. I know that takes more than a few minutes, and that data is so very important and really does help us advocate for your work, both with FDA and with Congress, and showing all of the work you do. In fact, just this morning, I used it again there was a question of what would be the impact of complete preemption on food safety for programs. So in other words, if the federal government had authority over all food programs, then I could give them a pretty good impact thanks to that survey and how that could help. So we just really appreciate you doing it. If you haven't done it, when you have fewer phone calls, emails, etc., over Christmas might be a nice time to finish it up and get it submitted. We're going to start be making some more phone calls as we get into the first of the year for those that haven't completed it. So we would just really appreciate your help. Also, I want to thank you all for participating in the survey with Deanna, the personal discussion survey. I believe we have 2 jurisdictions left, and that will be complete, and you'll start seeing results this spring. What? Sorry. Oh.
You're right. Nope.
Right. Okay, good deal. So thanks again for that. And then nearing the end, or the end, I think actually, yes, I always have to remind you of the A to Z index. I think you will find that there are resources on almost everything you can imagine there. In addition, if you have something that you think should be featured there, please don't hesitate to tell us that. That's part of how we find the best resources out there is people giving us input that, hey, this is something that we've found that we use that's not there that should be. So please definitely continue to help us crowdsource what should be in that guide. Okay, I think
2 more left.
that's you.
Okay. All right. I'll talk about the last 2 then. All right. So the freebie exercises that are outbreak scenarios for retail agencies to use to test their program readiness. We have 2 on the AFDA website, and we just added a 3rd, but the 3rd one is focused on food fraud. So it's not quite an outbreak scenario, but if you ever want to see how a food fraud case would be handled by your agency, we have everything ready to go. Just scan the QR code and you can download all the exercise materials there on the website. All right, next slide. This is the final one. And I just wanted to remind everyone that AFDA does legislative tracking, because I know legislatures are going to start meeting again pretty soon. So if you have anything that you want more information on, or you want to see how it turned out somewhere else, we do track those every single year, and those can be found on the AFDA website. All right, and with that, we are going to get to the most exciting part of the call today. Even though all that training is super exciting, I'm glad it's being recorded because that is way too much to remember. Lots of training opportunities to come up that I hope we will see you at, but we are about to engage in a awesome panel discussion. We have 6 panelists for you talking about how the next generation of retail food inspectors are being trained. And I'm going to introduce the first 2 briefly. We have Jeff Jackson and Angela Carragher from Arkansas and Florida. Jeff, do you want to give us a quick overview of your program before we move on to the rest of our panelists?
Yeah, sure. I've got about 50 slides prepared, so give me just a second. And I will share my screen. All right, can everyone see my slides? All right. Deanna says yes. So just a quick overview of my program. We have 83 total field staff, 5 retail food specialists that are actually our trainers. That's approximately 1 for each public health region. I say approximate. Northwest Arkansas is our population center, so there's actually 2 specialists in that area. Southeast Arkansas does not have a specialist and hasn't had for quite some time, but we cover that through the Southwest region because all of South Arkansas is fairly rural, and so there's only like 14 total inspectors doing food in the south part of the state. So we shifted around, but it's approximately 1 trainer for each region. There are 21 EHSs who do all programs, and by all programs, I mean primarily on-site wastewater, food, and pools. And then there's 57 EHSs who do food and pool inspections only. So since 2022, we adopted the CFP Retail Food Field Training Manual that's referenced in Standard 2. So we naturally require both pre and post inspections that are listed in that Appendix B1. We also require a minimum of 25 joint inspections of medium and high priority facilities before an inspector can do independent inspections, and at least 12 of those have to be trainer-led inspections. I actually implemented something a few years ago because I had some staff who were, let's just say they were going to Subways and McDonald's, and that was really about the only types of training inspections that they were doing. So I had to restrict the access that they had until to the inspection software until I approved the types of facilities that they were being trained in. And so that changed that quite a bit. And then we also do require standardization within 24 months. Another thing that we've got implemented is only staff who are approved by the central office as trainers can be used to do those inspections. They can do joint inspections with other inspectors to fill in time or whatever they need to do, but those inspections don't count towards their 25 joint inspections. Lastly, we recently implemented a new set of performance standards that requires multiple metrics, including inspection report, review, quality assurance audits, where we're going out after the inspector and talking to the person in charge who was there at the time, finding out what their thoughts on how our inspector performed, as well as joint inspections and productivity standards that are aimed at preventing the mad dash at the end of the inspection cycle. I mentioned this because I think this program is going to give us some feedback on where gaps in our training may exist. And so we only started this in July of this year, so we don't have any data just yet, but I'm hopeful that we're going to have that in the coming months. As far as additional sources of training that's not necessarily required in policy, but is required in practice, all of our staff go to the AFTO boot camp. That's where they get their soft skills and their power skills. We also strongly encourage FD 215, FD 218, and FD 312. And those courses are taken as we can get them into the courses. As y'all know, there's a limited number of seats available for those courses. And last slide is just some recent developments. So we are a centralized state, but we've been operating for all of my career in somewhat of a decentralized manner. So we had a center director and a regional director, and then the environmental director was on the same level as the regional director, but the field staff and the regional inspection staff did not report to our environmental director. That all changed as of December the 1st. So we're now 16 days into actually operating as a centralized health department. So all this happened after Deanna asked me to speak on this. So there may be questions that are asked later that I go, I really don't know, but I think this is what's going to happen in the future. So with that, I'll hush and turn it back over to Deanna. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for that quick overview, Jeff. Next, we're going to turn it over to the other centralized program on our call today. Angela, please introduce yourself and describe your program.
Excellent. Thank you. My name is Angela Carragher. I am the statewide training manager for DBPR within the state of Florida. I have a few slides as well, so if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And so what we have here is, let's see, all right. Within the state of Florida, there are actually 3 different agencies, well, multiple agencies, but 3 main agencies: Florida Department of Health, Florida Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. And that's who I am a part of. We have the lion's share of the retail food service. And you can see here, as part of our agency, we do public lodging as well. We do hotels, motels, and apartments. We regulate about 67,000 food service. That does include food trucks, and we regulate and license vacation rentals. So where do our inspectors come from? Come from all different backgrounds. We obviously get the folks with the professional degrees. Well, we get the folks with environmental health, public health, and biological sciences. But we also get quite a few folks with restaurant management experience. And we find that they end up being very good candidates for us because they're familiar with food service, familiar with restaurants, familiar with violations. They're used to fast-paced working environment, so they do really well for us. We also get folks from a hospitality, tourist, obviously Florida, a big tourist industry here. We get folks from lodging background. And we also get a lot of military veterans. We're very proud of our military veterans that we hire here. We find a lot of folks retiring from the military, looking to re-enter the workforce. And so we're happy to have them on the team as well. So how do we get all of those folks with all those different diverse backgrounds ready? We do subscribe to the FDA program standard number 2. We utilize the pre-inspection curriculum from LearnEd. We do field training and experience, very similar to the gentleman before me. We do in a field training with trainers where the trainer leads the inspection. And then at a certain point, after about 25 inspections, they flip it. And then the candidate is the lead for the inspections. At the 50th inspection, the supervisor will come in and evaluate the candidate and see if they're ready to work on their own. If so, then they progress to independent inspections. At some point, when they're ready for field standardization, we get them ready and they are standardized in the field. And then, of course, education and continuing education and training. So this is sort of the time frame that we work with. And obviously, this is going to be very flexible, depending on the person's background, their aptitude, their experience. This is subject to change, but this is the general guidelines. So they have field inspections with a trainer. So that's going to be usually the first 3 months. Again, about the 50th inspection, they are evaluated by the supervisor. Once they're ready, they are sent out on their own. And that usually takes the first 3 to 6 months after that. At about month 6, we have a standardized laws and rules classroom. It is in person, and there is a proctored exam at the end that they are required to pass. After that, they are then sent back out into the field. And about month 11 is when they are prepared to go with an FDA standardized physio. If they pass standardization, they make it to probation at the 1-year period. And again, within that 1-year period, they need to complete the rest of the FDA online curriculum, complete any other internal training courses. And we do have our own specific training courses that we have, and obtain a food protection manager certification. So what does that look like? So the way that we keep track of all of those folks and all of those different steps of the training, we have a technical training manual. And that is what we use to keep track of all the different steps of their training. supervisor field evaluations. Even after the inspector is sent out on their own, they are evaluated several times a month by their supervisor. They do ride-alongs. They continue to do ride-alongs and work days with their trainers. We keep a database of all the completed training certificates for all 230 plus of our field inspectors. We do the standardization reporting as well as maintaining the CEUs. And you can see an example of our probationary inspector checklist on the right there. That is the checklist that we keep in our training records office to make sure that everybody meets all of the requirements by the end of their probationary period. And that is what we have for you folks today.
All right. Thanks for sharing that overview, Angela. If you guys haven't figured it out yet, we have a broad mix of program structures on this call today, and we did that intentionally so that you get a lot of different training methods and viewpoints and structures. So next, we're handing it off to, we have two decentralized programs that are going to share how their new inspector training is happening in their state. And Joe, do you want to take over next and talk
Absolutely. And Deanna was not kidding when she said that we have very diverse states represented here. So you just saw the presentation from Florida and Arkansas. I would have to say we are the opposite of that. We are completely decentralized in Washington state. We don't have any direct oversight of our local health jurisdictions. But we do have, at the state level here, we have a small but mighty team, and we provide a ton of support for our LHJs. That's what we call our local jurisdictions here, LHJs. So if I say that's local health jurisdiction, and we provide them a ton of support in their training efforts. We encourage them to use standard 2, but we don't have like a probationary period as what you just described. That's all up to the local jurisdiction to handle that. But we do encourage them to use standard 2. Some of our jurisdictions, and we have 35 local health jurisdictions in Washington, some very, very big, like King County, and some very, very small that have like half an FTE in environmental health. That's how small at least one of them is. Some of the jurisdictions completely use the training components of standard 2 to train their staff. Others use some of those training components, while others may not use much of any of those training components from standard 2. So to support our local health jurisdictions, we provide new inspector training. One of the things that we provide for them, we try to offer it twice a year, but at least annually, we combine virtual and in-person sessions. So there's definitely an in-person component to our new inspector training. They all gather up in the Olympia area where we are, and we train new inspectors and give them, again, classroom training in addition to virtual training. It's extremely and hands-on. That's why we come together in person to give them hands-on. It's extremely valuable for local inspectors. They can't replicate that, most of them, on their in their own jurisdictions. So we provide that for them, and then we also provide field training as requested and as our schedules allow. Our technical lead is FDA standardized, and she offers standardization for one local standard per jurisdiction, and that local standard then standardizes their staff. We don't require that because, again, we are decentralized, but we have created lots of resources, lots of materials, and are constantly talking to our health departments, constantly working with them and helping them to train their staff better, helping them with consistency issues. And so that is how we do it in the decentralized state of Washington.
Right. Thank you, Joe. So next up, another decentralized state, we have Shane Smith with North Carolina, who's going to talk about their program.
Hey, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. It's great hearing all the different perspectives because I think we're kind of a cross between some of what you've heard already. We are a decentralized state of North Carolina, but we do have a very robust program that's similar to kind of Florida's. We have about 1,400 environmental specialists that are required to be registered in our state across three different disciplines. We have our general statutes that require we have a registered environmental health sanitarians board, or specialist board. Used to be sanitarians, now specialist. So once a person is hired by our local health department, we had 87 different districts in North Carolina, about 100 different counties. They are required to meet at least a minimum standard similar to Florida's with at least 30 physical hours of science. We have had a recent legislative change which widened it up to public health degrees as well. So we have had an influx of public health. And similar to Florida, we do get some people that come from the restaurant field, and those are very wildly successful knowing the background and some of the actual operations besides just the rules and regulations and the science behind what we do. Once they are hired, they have to be at least employed 2 weeks before they can come to a required centralized intern training. We require distance learning before they come. Our program is based up on a standard 2 type mechanism where we have distance learning that has to be taken before, as well as at least 1 week of program specific work, which is done through Teams. Everything was done in person before COVID, but once COVID hit, within actually less than a week, we had to switch over and start training everyone virtually, and we have not been able to go back in person since. The program didn't miss a beat. We have a fantastic state staff of about 11 different regional specialists, 1 field supervisor, 2 team leaders. They are all standardized. Once you become a regional with the state of North Carolina, you have 18 months to become standardized. They are assigned all the counties within those 87 different districts across the state. The interns, once they complete centralized intern training, must pass a written test to go back to that local county health department to work and complete 40 at least practice inspections made up of a different, at least a differentiation with a concentration on category 3 and 4 for specialized process or high risk facilities. Once they complete that packet, they have to send that back into our centralized intern training manager, which goes to the regional for review to make sure there has been a progression of a handing off from their field work from following the inspections to now leading the inspections. Then they are assigned a date to pass the written test. That written test is made up of 100 true false, multiple questions, as well as scenario situations. The regional that is assigned to that intern, then once they pass, does field work. Our field work and even all of our programs must follow a quality assurance policy. Those quality assurance metric scores are used to calculate whether they are passed, need more work, and actually become authorized. Once they are authorized, we then are allowed to release that intern back to the county where they are beginning their work for that local health department. We don't have a probationary period. Once they pass the intern training, they're allowed to go to work for that facility. We do try to work a 6-month follow-up. And again, our quality assurance program requires at least a yearly review to make sure they're keeping the minimum standards of the program. That time period usually goes from anywhere from about 6 months to a year before they become fully authorized. And that's how we at least get the program started in the state of North Carolina. But again, our statutes and our rules require certain registration and certain metrics be met before they can actually be released and take those tests.
Right, great. That's interesting perspectives from 2 states that are set up similarly in a decentralized manner. So we're going to continue reviewing some of the differences. So next up, we have 2 states that have state and local retail programs within their state. So I will hand it over to Danielle from Wisconsin to talk about how training is happening there.
Perfect, thank you. So Danielle Vollendorf with Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection, Division of Retail and Recreational Safety Programs. I have 9 technical specialists that are charged specifically with training our local and our state staff, 6 which are specific to retail food and 3 which are specific to recreational programs. We do both, as indicated. We have DADCAP field staff that go out and do our licensing and inspections, as well as our agent health departments. We call them agents if they have a contract or an MOA, a memorandum of agreement with us, that we do training with. We have 72 counties in Wisconsin. 55 of those counties are inspected by our agent health departments, and 18 are inspected by our DADCAP field staff. Our field staff consists of 3 field supervisors, and under them, they have a total of 18 field staff. And then at the local level with those agent health departments, we have 73 agent health departments or current jurisdictions that correlates to 60 MOAs. So I know that sounds a little like, why is that off? You have 60 MOAs, but 73 agent health departments. And that is because we have multiple cities. So county, and consortiums, as well as our University of Wisconsin system. So a consortium could be multiple agent health departments or multiple cities that come together and form a consortium. Of those 60 agent MOAs that are included in that does add up to about 300 environmental health staff, registered sanitarians, and environmental health technicians that we are responsible for training for. Again, just similar to what we just heard, we do have that same requirement where you have to have the RAHS or RS. We have a Wisconsin version, and then they also have the ability to do the NEHA REHS within 2 or 5 years based on current staffing. And this does vary with that 2 or 5 years. It does vary if you're a DATCAP employee or you are an agent health department employee. Similar to what we were hearing before, we have the pre-inspection curriculum that they have to go out and complete before getting into the field. They have field training, independent inspections, and then also included in there is going out with our own technical specialist, and of course that continued education and training. We do currently follow the FDA Standard 2 for trained regulatory staff. And DATCAP also, for our specific staff, before they are independent, they have to pass a performance evaluation form in order to be independent. At the agent level, although we do supply and support them for training, they are responsible for their own training plans of their new staff. We provide that guidance of what that looks like and gives them that criteria, but they truly are responsible for their own training plans. We have access to those plans and those records through a site that's called SharePoint, where they're required to upload their plans and records for our review. We also do standardization. Our technical specialists are FDA standardized. Again, that would be 6 of them. Of those 6, then they go out and they standardize our DATCAP field staff that are broken into regions. So there are 3 that they would have to standardize. Those 3 are then required to internally standardize the remaining field staff. Similar with our agent health departments, where our technical staff would go out and do a initial standardization with a minimum of 1 person, and that is based on the size of their agent health department. And that individual then in return is internally standardizing their staff as well. Field training is ongoing. We have various topics that we cover, such as mock standardization to prepare them to be internally standardized, risk-based inspections, person in charge, demonstration of knowledge, and many, many more. Those are just to name a couple. And then we also have the ability to personalize any training in an area as needed. Per their MOA, agents are required to complete training annually. That can include a conference that we would host, webinars that we would host, or going into the field with us as well. We also do have many different field exercise options for them, but when they're being evaluated, we have a 3-year evaluation cycle. When they're being evaluated, they're required to go in the field with our technical specialist, and again, having a form filled out, and that will help us determine if additional training, additional support for training is going to be needed after that evaluation cycle. Beyond the normal field training, we also do provide additional guidance documents, policies, interpretive memos, and recorded webinars for our teams.
Right. Thank you, Danielle. That's a lot of information. And then now to add to the pile of information you're all getting bombarded with, our other state and local representative here from Colorado, we have Troy Huffman.
Yeah, thank you so much. Troy Huffman with the state of Colorado. And I had a sports jacket on, so you could tell the difference between myself and Jeff Jackson as presenters. So we both got the same memo, so we obviously. But it's really similar to the other states that we've already heard about. We kind of got a little bit of a hybrid like Danielle has there in Wisconsin, in Colorado. But a few things that might be a little bit different is by state statute. The program is dedicated delegated 100% to CDPHE. But within that statute, it does allow for us to delegate the program to our local public health partners. And in Colorado, there are 35 different public health agencies across the state. There are some that we do not have contracts with at this time. So those 9 counties, those 9 districts, we actually have the direct service oversight regulatory inspections with them. One thing's a little bit different. I heard Danielle mentioning MOAs. We don't have memorandums of agreement or understanding. It's actually a contractual agreement that local agencies must adhere to. If they're not able to meet criteria that are defined within that contract, they could have that delegated authority taken away from them. And that has happened in the past for whatever reason that the state would decide that their program needed to be ran by us. So we have a responsibility to our stakeholders, the regulators, the industry, the consumers, to make sure that those contracts are being adhered to. So we do statewide program assessments of each of the local jurisdictions. We usually conduct about 5 or 6 of those per year, where we go in and do an assessment, an audit, if you will. We like the word assessment a little bit better. Of that program, to make sure that we are looking at their data system, their violation documentation, their reports. And I bring that up because part of our side, any contract has, both sides have a piece that they are agreeing to. We provide the data system. So all of the counties, all the local public health agencies in Colorado use the state's data system. We provide that to them as a resource for free. They may utilize it for some other programs. That's a separate contract that they would have with that provider. But that allows for us, and this is kind of really a significant paradigm shift for our program, being able to see statewide where everyone falls in as far as like average inspection rates, violations, marking guides, so that we can try to be as standardized as possible here in Colorado under those contracts that we have. The 35 LPHAs, some of the big challenges we have, out of those, 16 of them are actually one-person agencies. So when somebody from that agency of one of those 16 leaves, all of that training, which is what kind of the conversation that we're having here today, falls upon who? Well, it would be the state health department, seeing that that new inspector, that new person, is going to be brought up to speed and be able to sign off to do inspections. Everyone's mentioned, I think, standard 2, utilizing those resources that have been defined for us through the CFP process and by the FDA as far as standard 2. We use that same foundational element in Colorado with the joint inspections to do the sign-off. Of elements that's a little bit different is that we help local agencies. We've got 16 of them, obviously. We would be doing the sign-offs for them because they are their sole agency. But we make ourselves available that when those sign-offs happen, or when they get to that point where that inspector is ready to be independent, we make ourselves available to go do a day's worth of joint inspections to see if we agree with them. The reason why we do that is all the standardizations of all of the inspectors in the state are done by the CDPHE team. We would be conducting all those standardizations. Similar to what Danielle mentioned, is kind of a pre-standardization process where we would go out with them, making sure that they do good risk-based inspections, reviewing same model that we have from our FDA counterpart when they standardize us, in the sense that we are going to be looking at discrepancies, looking at the disagreements, and using that same model that they have. We do have inspectors that do not meet the criteria, and that's what we strive for uniformity, and need to go back to a work improvement plan and do joint inspections and do additional training. Looking at this, so that's probably a significant part, is our team does all of those standardizations across the state. We also break it down where every member of my team has assigned local agencies that they're responsible for. So they meet on a regular basis with each of those local agencies. providing training, providing feedback, interpretations, and just to try to strive towards that uniformity. We offer a lot of training. We do a Colorado risk-based inspections course. We have a Colorado food code class, and boot camp. We actually started that almost 10 years ago, and ours is in person. So we bring inspectors. We pay to have the inspectors come to Denver. They're an entire week's worth of training, joint inspections with the staff, training each morning, and they go out and do inspections every afternoon for an entire week's worth of intensive training. And that has been a significant shift for us as well. As far as our training, we also have a HACCP and a Standard 5. We do an annual tabletop exercise to help everybody with Standard 5. And that basically, in a nutshell, is Colorado's program that I wanted to share with everybody. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that information. And now we're going to get to the panel discussion part where we're going to open this up for some Q&A amongst our panelists. And we already have one question in the chat. Troy, do you require the agencies to use your database?
So we make it available for free, and there are a few counties that have their data systems that are integrated so tightly into other programs across their county system that it makes it very challenging for them to be able to pull themselves out of that. But their system has to be able to provide all of the data and all the information that's required under that contract. So where it's not a requirement in the contract to use that data system, a lot of them look at it, and it's a significant cost savings for them to have the data system be provided through us. So that's essentially how that works out.
Great, thank you. Anyone that has a question, you can raise your hand and ask directly, or you can put it in the chat. We're going to be using both methods, and we actually have a panelist that has a question. Jeff, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, as Dr. Don and Professor Ben would say, this question's coming from inside the house. So I just thought it'd be interesting information to know how many program staff each of us have, because, and I'll start, I have myself and 3 people doing plan review, and that's it in my state office program. So I think it would be interesting to see what the rest of y'all have as far as support staff for your program. Because I think that will tell the tale a little bit on training and how that works. So that's my question.
I'm unmuted, so I'll go ahead, and then I think Shane is unmuted. He's going to go next. How about that? I have myself and 8 other staff members at this time. We did have a significant fee increase in Colorado that's going to be impacting a lot of our agencies. I believe that we should be able to add a few more staff to our team. Good question, Jeff. Thank you.
Yeah, really good question, Jeff. I'll go next. So I have myself as the branch head, and I have multiple programs within the food protection facility branch. So food is the largest program. We have about 50,000 establishments across that state, but I also have state pools, tattoos, institutions, a plan review department, an inspection statistics and fees office as well. So in-house, as far as that work in the office, say in Raleigh area, would be 3 administration under ISF, 3 in plan review, or well, actually 1 and 3 temporaries, 11 field staff across the state that are regionally based with 2 team leaders and 1 field supervisor in food, and 5 across the state for pools and tattoos with 1 field supervisor for pools and tattoos. Whoa, Troy, you got dark.
It won't
All
take me
right.
long. Yeah, it won't take me long to answer that one. I have a lot shorter answer. There's me as a program manager. We have right now currently a position as a supervisor over the food safety program, which is going to be vacated soon. And then we have a technical lead, and we have a technical specialist. We have half of an FTE that helps us coordinate outbreak response. And we have a program specialist that provides our support. That's it.
All right, so is that like 4.5 total? That's
Yeah.
what I heard. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
On a
All
good
right.
day.
On a good day. All right. When they're not getting ready to vacate. All right.
We have one retiring. Yes.
Retiring. Okay.
Tiring.
I think we're all facing some of that. I hear turnover is such an issue, which is one reason we wanted to talk about training today. Danielle, did you want to share how many you have in your program?
Yeah, so we have our program manager, which is Jim Kaplanek, who maybe some of you have heard is retiring. His last day with the state of Wisconsin is January 2nd. So he had asked me to participate today and that reach out. So I am one of the supervisors. Then we have 3 field supervisors that oversee just our field staff for us. Then I oversee our technical specialist, which are 9 of us. 6 are retail, 3 are recreational programs, so lodging, campgrounds, pools, so forth. And then we do have another team that helps support us with like licensing, the financial piece of it, that is separate from myself, but they do support our program as well. So total, I would say, with our 18 field staff, I guess I don't want to look at the field staff. I want to really look at the, in-house staff. So there's going to be 16 of us total then.
Great, thank you. And then Angela?
Okay, so we have our division director. We have a bureau chief, Michelle Haynes. Many of you folks may know her. We have, I'm not actually stationed in Tallahassee, so I'm trying to think of names and faces. I'm actually stationed in Orlando, but within our Office of Program Quality, we have 5 trainers, and they are stationed throughout the state geographically, and they are the ones that do a lot of the training. They do our monthly training. We have them do all of the field standardization for our new inspectors. I see Michelle put in the chat 15 plan reviewers. And we have one person who is really dedicated to doing a lot of our training records. He keeps track of all of our certificates, our probationary evaluations, anything and everything having to do with standard 2, our monthly training, CEUs. And so he's a one-man show, but he does a lot. He maintains our website. So anyway, yeah, we've got some really great folks up there in Tallahassee.
Thank you. And I see Chris from Georgia Ag has added in the chat. They have 8 support staff members. So kind of giving a little bit of frame of reference there. And then we have another question in the chat. Does any state use a centralized database to track the retail food training records that are necessary for Standard 2?
Yeah, I can answer with what we do. So we use Food Shield. I have a folder in Food Shield that's called Arkansas Training Records. And so each county or each region in my state has their own folder, and all their own inspectors have their own folder. And so once that training record is completed, we upload it. Once their standardization paperwork is done, we upload it. The advantage of using that is if I am doing an audit or being audited on my standards, I can simply give them access to that folder in Food Shield, and I don't have to do anything else. It's already there. So that's how I use.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, you beat me to it.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Shane. No.
All right. So for us, we have a centralized intern training program coordinator that keeps up with our requirements for meeting the authorization practicals as far as for keeping up with, some of our, as far as Standard 2, half of our states enrolled in the standards and half is not. Again, being decentralized, we can't require all 1,400 or of our environmental specialists to be standardized. It's district sensitive on that. But we do have a great standards network in North Carolina Program Standards Network, who does a great job of working within those decentralized areas that are enrolled in the standards, which is about half the state now. We keep up with our intern training and testing and meeting the RHS board and continuing education hours through our registered environmental health safety specialist board.
Anybody else want to chime in on how those records are being kept?
Well, in Florida, as I mentioned, we have a gentleman in Tallahassee who is our main person who keeps track of those. We have a customized access database that we keep everything in. So, and I just want to put a shout out there to our folks. We actually passed a Standard 2 audit last year, so pretty excited about that. So.
Okay, so do we have any other questions? We do have a list of prepared questions too, if you guys don't have anything that comes to mind. But yeah, is there anything else that you would like to know before we jump into our own question list? And if you have something that comes to mind, pop it in the chat or just raise your hand. You can unmute and ask away on this call. So my first question I have is, how long are new inspectors typically in training before they are released to do inspections solo?
I'll speak first. Usually from the time they're hired to attending intern training to actually authorization, I would say it's anywhere between 6 to 9 months. Strange occasions go to a year, but not many.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Ours is fairly similar. It really more depends on exactly what type of employee they are. So if they are food pool only, that happens a little bit faster, 3 to 4 months maybe on the top end, 6 months on the bottom end. If they're generalists, meaning they're doing on-site wastewater, because of the added time that's being spent in that type of training, then we're looking at closer to a year to get somebody fully trained.
Other panelists like to add info?
I would say Wisconsin, it's all over the board, depending on, again, if they're DACAP state staff or if they're going to be a local staff, especially as those local staff can create their own training plans. They could be quite accelerated training plans. We have seen staff independently working at 4 months in, being new on the job. But they also stack them differently, where they get them to understand prepackaged or a low complexity, get them in the field, start working independently, building their skill set, and then build on moderate to complex for them as they go along. So maybe at 4 months, they're in there doing some of these low hanging fruit, prepackaged style, low complexity style. And then within 9 months, maybe they're out there doing a complex. So it really does vary across the board, depending on the person, right, and their initiative and that individual training plan.
Go for it, Troy.
Yeah, Danielle, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's very similar to what we do with, like I mentioned, our 16 counties that have one person when somebody leaves or retires from one of those programs. A very similar approach of getting to the point where they might be able to do a lower risk factor types of facilities, just so that they can continue to work a little bit on their inventory and help with that. Our team also assists in going down with their inventory in their areas until they get that formal sign off. But yeah, very similar of a format that everybody's kind of mentioned, utilizing the standard 2. Everybody's a little bit different on how long before they can be meet that initial sign off for that process, for sure. So good comments. Thank you.
And ours varies extremely wide. And so it's a wide range. We promote standard 2, the training plan is standard 2, certainly. That's what we would like as a minimum, but it really depends on local need. We have such a diverse set of local health jurisdictions that it really varies widely across the state.
Thank you. Now, what about how are you training for some of those soft skills or power skills, that communication and critical thinking piece? I've heard a lot of conversation about standard 2 on this call, but there's a lot more, I think, sometimes to being a successful inspector than just learning all the science and code rules. So what does that look like in your state?
I'll start again from decentralized because ours is fairly easy. I mean, again, we include some of that in our new inspector training. So we've built, modules into that. And we're also, we create training materials, and we're working on that all the time to help encourage the jurisdictions to use these materials like in their staff meetings, for example, and to try to promote those soft skills into their standard 2 training work, but also into staff meetings and other ways to get those injected into the programs.
I'll piggyback real quick on decentralized. So for like intern training and the distance learning, there is a communication module that is part of that piece during our primary program work during that week of centralized intern training, which is food specific. We do breakout sessions. We used to do all this different breakout rooms where it was more person-to-person work. Now, of course, we utilize breakout rooms in teams to still try to get that as best we can. Kind of following up on that, we have a really, I don't know if it's unique within the state of North Carolina, but it was whenever I became to the state. We have a North Carolina State of Practice, which is made up of local environmental health specialists as well as state regional specialists and some academia that prescribe and have training throughout the year for continuing education that centers on different focus points to help build those skill sets that we may see that are a little bit lacking or that we get requests from supervisors. We have an environmental supervisors association that also say, hey, this is what we would like to see, or we need more of this, and we try to work on those to give those needed work areas for the environmental specialists. And then as far as like the last piece that I would say that would probably help a little bit of that, we do have a marketing instructions for all of our, well, not for all of our inspections, but specifically for lodging and food that kind of helps frame, where to mark, how do you deal with this inspection situation, and also an enforcement and strategies manual. So when it comes time to deal with that enforcement piece, what are the paths that follow along, so the employee has a quick guide to go to. So hopefully it'll facilitate some of those gaps.
In Florida, we have our own learning management system, and we have a lot of courses that are involved in that with a lot of those soft skills. We have a required self-paced course that they're required to take for ethics. We have annual communications and customer service training that they're required to do. And a lot of it is really honing those customer service skills. If you can get them to buy into customer service, that just makes such a big difference. And so we really stress that partnership aspect of the inspector operator relationship.
I think that's one of the critical elements in hiring. I feel like, most everybody that makes it through the process to actually, where I'm looking at applications, they've got the aptitude. They've met those core requirements on the science elements, but having the communication piece, the ability to be able to educate versus regulate is so challenging, and it's hard to say, oh, well, you need to go sit in this all-day class, or you need to go. Those skills are so hard to teach, and I think one of the things we try to do in Colorado is I like to have our team go out and have those newer inspectors see a lot of different styles. We'll have a lot of our local agencies that are close to each other. Will go cross jurisdiction and do ride-alongs and go do joint inspections together, just so that they can see a lot of different inspectional styles and maybe steal some ideas or get some suggestions. And the more of that kind of exposure, I think, makes that inspector more well-rounded overall.
Yeah, and I'll jump in here. So as I mentioned, this is part of the reason I mentioned this. So I'm a one-man show, basically, right? And the person whenever I took this job last December, I left a job that technically hasn't been filled. So my old job was a training officer, and so I was responsible for standardization and for development of training. I had to reduce that to a half-time position, so that person still hasn't been standardized by FDA yet. But I said all that to say this: we primarily use the AFTO boot camps for some of these soft skills and power skills trainings. They're excellent courses. I'm not just saying that because I'm involved and I'm teaching the one on Clear as Mud, Clear as Day this year. I'm not just saying that. They really are good courses. So if you're not sending your folks to those, definitely do that. The other thing I'll say is, everything else that we do is in-house developed by this one-man band over here. So that's kind of how it works.
Thank you. Any other comments before we move on to our next question in the chat? All right. So Jessica from Massachusetts would like to know, do you include diversity and equity as part of your training?
I can kick
I
that
can
one
jump
off.
in. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
That's all
Daniel.
right. So again, because we're state and local, at the state level, yes, that is a requirement for our team to take those courses. They're typically a virtual style webinar. At the local level, because we don't dictate their training plans, we don't have control over if they are taking that or not.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is we're actually prohibited under executive order from doing that. So no, we are not, is the short answer.
Yeah, I would say very similar in North Carolina. We do have training materials. That was a focal point, but we had a very similar executive order.
All right. So it sounds like you guys hire a varied amounts of backgrounds, education, and experience from your new inspectors. Do you do anything to address those differences when you're training?
I can say in Florida, I think the biggest thing that we have done to accommodate the wide variety of backgrounds and experiences that we have here is learning to be very flexible with that time frame. So the question was asked earlier, how long is it before inspectors are released out on their own or that sort of thing? It really does vary. It's going to be based on the experience, the background, the education, and the individual person. And so that's where our trainers really have to hone in on that person and say, this person's ready, this person is not. And so if it's typically 3 to 4 months, sometimes we go to 5 months, sometimes it's 6. Sometimes they're released on their own. And then with ride-alongs and evaluations where you say, oh, maybe they're not quite ready. And so we've really learned to be flexible with that time frame. Instead of really having to adhere to those specific guidelines.
Yeah, in North Carolina, we don't have a specific time frame as far as like if you're not meeting certain benchmarks. It's all about first and foremost is the practice work being done in the county. Do they meet that comfortability where the supervisor can send them to us and say they're ready? Sometimes we have had instances where, our regional specialists will be, performing the first or second or third inspection, say, well, they're missing this gap. Let's send them back for more training. So it's not like we're going to deny that authorization. We're going to work with that local environmental specialist to, try to bring them up to like what they need to become authorized. And then it's all about our quality assurance program that's done and then required through our agreement addendums with the local health departments that's performed each year, that they're meeting certain standards, which is kind of based off standard 2s with training. And if we see a gap during a QA, we can prescribe more training or put them on a conditional authorization before we allow them to go back in the field.
I don't see anyone else coming off mute. So our next question is, what do you think is key to building consistency among your inspectors?
I'll come off mute. Yeah, I'll talk a lot, so you all have to shut me up sometimes. So
Same. Yeah, I'll be the first.
Yeah,
answer.
you
Go
never have
ahead,
an
Shane.
you never have a problem where I won't answer a question. How about that? So I would say our QA program really is the focal point and our bedrock of being consistent. When I became a regional, I was at a local health department for 12 years and then became a regional about 10 years ago, 10 and a half years ago. So I worked as a regional for this program in the state. We were just developing our QA program with a partnership with local health departments. I think it's been very essential to providing a very standardized type without requiring standardization, at least building off the standards to getting a standard even keel program across the state and seeing those gaps. And if they're, with standardized scoring, metric scores of when you fall below that needs help or meets, it meets qualifications, and then the program can, prescribe that, whatever that education need or that training need to make sure they're bringing up to that minimum level. And again, if they don't, they can be put on a conditional authorization until they are. So I think that's been very essential. And then also half the state being enrolled in the standards and having a really good support by the local environmental health departments with the Environmental Supervisors Association and having really good communication on, what are the needs that they see, so we can try to make sure we're meeting consistent standards across the state. Of course, no one is robots. You're going to have some, someone sees it this way or that way, but at least with that quality assurance and then those marketing instructions that are key, we're trying to utilize the same kind of framework for the standards we try to build.
All right,
Yeah,
Joe
I
has his
agree.
hand up. Jeff, you're gonna have to wait. No.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I'm gonna let Joe go first.
I'm going to
Go
go
ahead.
first. Yep. I did that on purpose just to go in front of Jeff. All right. But it is a challenge for us, obviously, in a decentralized state, but it is one of our biggest values in our program. We greatly value consistency. It's super important that we have consistency across the state. So we try very hard. We have a monthly office hours that we hold with the jurisdictions to let them answer questions. We have another call, which is we focus more on plan review to try to get plan review consistency across the jurisdictions. We have a monthly managers call. So we are in constant contact with the health departments. Some of our team are talking to them on the phone regularly and coaching them and helping them and encouraging them. We provide materials to promote consistency. So for us, while it's a challenge, again, it's our biggest value, and we really try to do as much as we can to promote consistency and get consistent answers and interpretations across the state.
Thank you, Joe. Jeff?
All right. So yeah, I mean, I agree with Shane. My focus is really on using data to drive the decisions that I make and the trainings that we give. But ultimately, I think consistency starts at the top and works its way down. And so it's my job to be consistent and provide consistent policy and consistent interpretations of food code, consistent training to my training officers so that they're providing that consistent training. So really, I think that's the key, along with using that data to really drive where your training needs to change. And so those are the things I'm working on.
All right, Troy.
It really pains me to say that about everything that Joe said is exactly what we do as well. But it was just, hearing Joe, what you mentioned with the we call them fireside chats, our monthly fireside chat. We usually try to do a little bit of programming along with that. Like I had our produce safety people from our Colorado Department of Agriculture come in as a guest speaker. We've had water quality come over and talk to. We usually have about 100 to 120 inspectors that log in. All of those are recorded and kept on our statewide collaboration site, so people can go back and review those fireside chats, those office hours. And then we also, connecting with our LPHAs, local public health agencies, that each person has assigned those. But the biggest piece too, and Jeff touched on this, with the data and having that statewide data system that our local specialists or my staff that works with the locals can go in and on an inspector basis see where their violations, what they're marking. Why is 22 for you only marked 5% of the time and your cold holding is marked 55% of the time. Or as an agency, statewide overall, with the way our point system works in Colorado, we hit about 25 to 26 points per inspection. Why is your agency at 45 to 50 points as an average overall? You know, those agencies that are outside of that bell curve. And reviewing that data continuously and then addressing that on an inspector or with a manager at a manager basis, I think helps really build out that consistency as well.
So in Florida, that laws and rules course that we give at about the 6-month time frame, that course is given and attended by all 5 of our Office of Program Quality trainers. They all sit in on that course. So every new inspector that comes to the state of Florida has to sit through that course, and we go through the inspection report, and we start with the high risk violations, and then we get to the GRPs, but every violation category is touched, and all of those trainers are in that room at the same time. So if there are any inconsistencies or any question about, well, how should this be cited, or where should this be cited, it's hammered out right there. And so those inspectors, those new inspectors, go out to their districts with that information. And then, you know, we do have monthly trainings, again, given by those 5 trainers who have typically reviewed and gone over that training together. We have a weekly meeting where we sit down and go through those trainings. So we know at the beginning of the month, if we're doing a training on ROP of frozen fish, and we're doing a training program on that, all 7 districts are all going to get the exact same training the exact same way, because all of those trainers had a part in putting that training program together. So that's part of what we do. And then we have all of our inspections are electronically updated, and we have a real-time database called CLIC, where each district manager or the statewide leaders can look at our inspection details, exactly what Troy was saying, what was cited, how many times has it been cited. You can look at, you know, regionally, do certain violations get cited more or cited less? And those are things that we can address at a state level to make sure we're looking at the same things, citing the same things the same way.
All right, thank you. I see we have a couple comments in the chat. Chris from Georgia echoed some of the comments that a consistent training coordinator has to have oversight on the individuals assigned as training officers, because those training officers should be audited as well as their trainees to identify any gaps and inconsistencies. Great point. And then it looks like Jeff has another in-house question. Is that a question or is it just a comment? Just
That was
a comment?
an in-house comment. Yeah, it was along the lines of what Troy was talking about, using data.
Okay, using the data. All right. Well, I see we've only got just about 5 minutes left in our call, so I'll start one more question, and then if anybody else has something that you're dying to know, you're running out of time. So go ahead and pop that in the chat or raise your hand up. But I'd like to know, what changes or improvements do you see coming for your training programs in the next few years, or something that you want to do in the next couple of years?
I would love to go back in person. I think, you know, that's one piece we, you know, with this virtual platform we're all living with post-COVID, it's great. And the scores haven't shown the delineation I thought I would see. But I think our people are still seeing that gap in communication, that it is still probably one of the biggest pieces of things that needs to be worked on. And you only get that working face to face before they go back into the county and work within their local inspections. I'd love to see standardization across the state. Of course, that takes more buy-in, being a decentralized state. But it's been really interesting to see it picked up and carried by half our state and what the network program standards do. So I think those are some things that I'd love to see. Sometimes with the way we're in a kind of a deregulation type legislative environment, I kind of want to hold on to what we got too. because I don't want to see anything removed, and that's always a fear. So as we wind up one legislative session and get ready for another, that's something I'm always very aware of.
Thank you, Shane. Joe?
I love the thought of holding on to what we got, but we'd love to also, it's really cool to see some of the programs some of the panelists are able to do that we really can't do the same way because we don't have that delegation or that oversight. So ideally, it'd be nice to get that. That's a big lift for us to do that, but that's be somewhere we'd want to move toward. And then more capacity for my team. My team is, like I said, small, but they're mighty. But we got a lot going on, and we try so hard to help the jurisdictions. There's a lot of needs out there in our state, so those would be the two things that I would want: is more capacity, and then eventually work toward a little more delegation and oversight to do some of the cool things that some of our other panelists are doing.
Okay, thank you. Jeff?
Yeah, so kind of piggyback off of Joe a little bit. So, I'm in that transition from a decentralized, centralized state to a more centralized framework. And part of the problems that we had being somewhat decentralized is my program just kind of remained stagnant because we could not make the people do the things that they were supposed to do. That was all somebody else's responsibility that ultimately didn't happen. Now that we've changed our design, I'm hoping to see more accountability across the board. I think we've already seen that in the 16 days that we've been in this new approach. I'd also like to see our folks moving more towards a risk-based approach to our inspections and less of a focus on quantity and not so much on the quality of inspections. So changing that mindset a little bit. And then also, I've really got to look at our training program overall as a whole. And so I'm thankful for the opportunity to hear what everybody else is doing because I've got a lot of great ideas. So great course, or not course, but presentation today, even though I was part of it. Just take everything I said out. Everybody else's stuff was great.
I know you're biased, Jeff. It's okay. Troy,
Yeah.
Your hand's up.
I'm going to pull the pin on a grenade and throw it in the middle of the room, but I'm really excited. I'm intrigued to see where AI could possibly be integrated into everything we do. I can't even get my mind around where it might end up or where it could go or what the possibilities might be. And with 2 minutes left, like I said, that's dropping the grenade in the room and then running, because that's a whole nother 2-day session probably that people could talk about. But that's an element that I'd be interested to see what the possibilities might be with that.
Great. Thanks, Troy. Angela, you came off mute.
Yeah, I was going to say I had to chuckle when Troy said that because I was actually going to say something very similar to that. We're looking to expand how we can use technology to be more effective and more efficient. That's our mantra: more effective and more efficient. And if AI can get us there, I'm willing to consider it. But yeah, it is a bit of a landmine. But yeah, looking forward to what the future holds.
All right, Danielle, anything that you would like to add in our last few minute together?
No, thank you guys. Great questions, great follow-up questions, much appreciated. I know that information is going to come out, but if you guys have any questions specifically on what the local state combination looks like, more than happy to help navigate those questions.
Right, awesome. Well, I've already gotten a request in the chat that some folks have some more information requests that they would like to send to you guys. So of course, everybody's email address is visible in all the invitations we send out, but I will make sure that you guys all know who these panelists were. And with that, we have a few save the dates. Our future calls are coming up. So there's an evaluation that's going to be sent out after this with a link to the recording. And if there's anything else you want to hear about, or panel discussions or topics, please let us know in those evaluations. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and see you in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you.